of all, I want to get into you. You've been skating for over 3 decades at this point.
Yeah.
You've seen about the peaks and valleys of some skating eras.
Sure.
What has it been like to see the evolution of skating, especially in the Philadelphia area? That's a scene that doesn't get much attention.
Well, it all really depends on what you mean with getting enough attention. Maybe in some circles it doesn't, but in other circles it does. Within the skateboarding community, Philadelphia is one of the meccas, especially of the East Coast. You have New York, of course. You have Philadelphia, and you have parts of Baltimore, but really in Atlanta and all that is when it goes big. And then there's a really good scene down in Florida. I mean, there's good scenes pretty much everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
but with Love Park and everything like that,
Yeah.
in the 80s and through the 90s into the early 2000s. Philadelphia is a Tony Hawk pro skater. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same with FDR, which is one of the biggest DIY skate parks in the world, and that's based right here in Philadelphia. I can only speak from my experience within regards to the evolution of skateboarding that I've seen. I started skating in about 89, 90. So it was right when it was starting to taper off. I remember seeing like all the older guys from a neighborhood and stuff skating, and they were always like the artists and like the musicians, and like they were really like the creatives were basically the skaters. And then it kind of died in like late 80s, early 90s really is when it really died. And it was hard to get stuff and whatnot, but that's when I really got turned on to skateboarding and really went for it. And it's one of those things that I may have been the only skateboarder in like a 3-town area, but when we would see somebody, they'd be wearing like Vans or Airwalk shoes or whatnot, and we knew that they were a skateboarder. And this is before cell phones and all that stuff. So we'd take down numbers, and then call them, and then we'd be like, hey, or if they were somebody from like a different state or even a different country, there was a whole network of like pen pal type stuff. So like, hey, I'm going to go to Georgia and stuff like that, and you'd send it out, or you'd send it to a skate shop, and they would tell you where to go or whatnot. You'd have like these catalogs that you could, if you couldn't get skate gear at your local sporting goods store, or back then there was very, very few skate shops per se. So there was a lot of times it was part of like a sporting goods chain, and you could get it, or a hobby store. You go into a hobby store to get like a model plane or a model car, and they'd have skateboards there too. So that's changed, because now it's become more of an industry again, where there's new shops and boutique shops and specialty shops and whatnot that are just skateboarding based. So there's that. There's more equipment available. The equipment's better than it was before. There's actually some more engineering behind it now with some of the composites that they're using now. And then just like but the core of it has been pretty much the same. It's just like going out and pushing yourself and seeing what you can do and what you bring to the table, essentially. And then when you're meeting up with others, you're getting stoked on what they're doing, they're getting stoked on what you're doing, and next thing you know, you're coming up with something new. So that's always been an evolution type of thing. So skateboarding from the very beginning in like the 50s, and I'm fortunate I have one of my friends who's actually one of my mentors, this guy Russ Howell. He was the first pro skater, and got to be friends with him over the last 15, 20 years. And he was telling me it's the same thing. Like, he is older than my father is, all right? Mm-hmm. And me and him can have this conversation like you and me are having this conversation. And he still has the same enthusiasm. He says the same vision that he had back then. And we can speak the same language. So it goes beyond all those barriers, whether it's age or race or background or whatnot. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with what you do. And that's the important